Chapter 581, Divine Kingdom Universe. Energy is needed for transformation. What better time? Lion said. He turned and accelerated the God Realm dimension's devouring of the mutant universe. Normally, galaxies swallowed into the God Realm dimension would take months to assimilate. But with dozens of abstract entities assisting, the environment inside the God Realm dimension rapidly matched that of a true universe. The months-long process was no longer necessary. Lion only had to absorb the mutant universe's star systems. The expansion would take care of itself. Under Lion's direct control, the vast mutant universe was consumed in a matter of hours. Every star system was pulled into the interior of the God Realm dimension. Its volume visibly contracted until it vanished entirely. With all of the mutant universe's matter and energy now inside, the God Realm dimension began to rumble and expand. Don't be fooled by cinematic portrayals of a single universe's limited resources. Each universe contains countless inner dimensions. The quantum realm alone is incomprehensibly vast. Now that the entire mutant universe had been incorporated, every star system within the God Realm dimension trembled. Trillions of systems swelled outward. Spiral galaxies multiplied their stars. The distances between galaxies widened. Viewed from outside, the God Realm dimension, already many trillions of light-years across, grew to an even more absurd scale. Outside the God Realm dimension, in the 7 dimensions that had been waiting to be devoured, 7 figures watched: Mephisto, Dormammu, and the 7-dimensional demon lords. They stared at the expanding God Realm dimension in astonishment. Master's dimension is about to become a true universe. Incredible, Satanish exclaimed. Yes. Dormammu's flaming eyes shone with excitement. In the past, seeing a scene like this would have sent him scheming to seize the God Realm dimension. But since Lion brought him under control, Dormammu's jealousy had been replaced by eagerness. I wonder when Master will swallow my dark dimension. Just the thought of aiding him makes it worthwhile, even if I die. His jubilation was a complete reversal of his old nature. The other 6 demon lords, rotten at the core, also nodded and voiced the same wish, that Lion take their dimensions soon. Lion, however, planned to leave those dimensions for last, to maintain multiversal stability until the final annihilation. Inside the God Realm dimension, as the last of the mutant universe's matter was assimilated, the transformation completed. Under Lion's influence, the dimension's laws grew coherent and unified. Hydrogen converged, igniting stars. The dimension's boundary hardened into the structure of a real universe. The rumbling continued for days. During it, Leon became a radiant golden figure. He hammered the fabric of the dimension with his fists, driving the transformation along with each strike. Eternity and other great entities watched in astonishment. As expected of a Superman from DC, someone muttered, his ability to reshape laws with his body rivals the Sentinels from the neighboring comic universes. With Lion's final resounding blow, the God Realm dimension completed its metamorphosis into a universe. It had grown larger, its laws perfected, and it now sustained internal and external circulation. Even if Lion ceased to attend it, the new universe would endure a long lifespan, until, in the far future, it collapsed into a singularity and was reborn in a new Big Bang. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, the God Kingdom universe shivered and began to move. Lion froze and activated his supervision, peering beyond the newborn cosmos. This is the realm of Split attempting to expel you, came Eternity's voice. Eternity, Infinity, and 4 other cosmic deities had appeared beside Lion. The realm of Split is a nest of countless dimensions, not complete universes, Eternity explained. Complete universes, those outside the multiverse group, normally exist in the outer dimensions. If you don't stop it, the realm of Split will eject your universe into the outer dimensions. That would put you much closer to real universes, and to powers you don't want to tangle with, Infinity added. There are beings like Setarok and the Eye Demon out there. You don't need to fear them now, but if the Eye Demon notices you, its agents, those big-eyed octopus heralds, would be a nightmare. They carry Cthulhu-like mental corruption. Lion can withstand that, but ordinary beings inside your universe could be devastated. Lion considered the warning. He glanced at the rumbling shell of his newborn cosmos and then made his decision. Let's stay in the realm of Split, he said. This environment is safer, and it's easier to send my subordinate mages to assist. Besides, I promised Black Strange dominance over the realm of Split, and that promise hasn't been fulfilled yet. Golden light poured from his body, spreading outward until it suffused the entire newborn universe like a living field. The invisible force arrested the universe's motion. The God Kingdom universe halted and slowly rotated in place, drawing in stray energies and shutting itself off from the realm of Split's outward push. The golden light reached into the 7 neighboring dimensions and began to assimilate them as well. Very good, Superman. Truly remarkable, Eternity and the other gods praised. When Lion's golden glow faded, he watched as Eternity and the others receded back to their conceptual states. He planned to head to the TVA next to assign tasks to Black Strange and the others. But the abstract entities did not fade away. They lingered, smiling and curious. Lion, one of them said, the core of this dimension, no, this universe, seems to be enveloped by a sealed space. We can't enter without forcing our way in. Is that your secret base? They meant no malice. Their curiosity had brought them. Honestly, many of them had been headed for Dr. Doom's battle world, but with so many embodies in play, perhaps some had already gone there. Lion smiled faintly. Secret base? I suppose, he said. It's my God Kingdom, a sealed space from another system. Sorry, I can't let you in right now. It's crucial for my future cultivation. The abstract entities accepted the answer with polite interest. Lion turned his gaze inward to the sealed core of his universe and prepared for the next stage of his plan. Chapter 582, Dividing into 2 Groups. The God Realm dimension had successfully been transformed into a universe. Once the abstract concepts had been assigned their places, Leon returned to the TVA. Another week passed like that. During those days, Leon kept a constant watch over the star systems that had been folded into the God Kingdom universe. Jarvis and Black Strange helped with the variable calculations. Only after they were sure the new universe's environment was stable did Leon begin the real plan to save the multiverse. Excellent. The mutant universe experiment succeeded. Now all we need to do is keep devouring a large number of Earths, Leon said in the TVA command center as he finalized the operation. He stood at the front facing the current staff, just over 600 people, mostly Spider-Men. There weren't many sorcerers from Kamartaj to begin with, and Leon had only brought a handful to the TVA as part-timers. Together they could manage monitoring the multiverse, but they didn't have enough hands for large-scale operations. After Leon announced the start of the operation, a Spider-Man shot his hand up. Superman boss, how many is a large number of Earths? If it's 600, we can each take 1. If it's 6,000, we can each take 10. No problem, Leon said with a smile. But from what we observed this week while monitoring the multiverse, the Spider-Man began. The number of Earths is infinite, right? Punk Spider-Man, the one with a row of spikes down his head, piped in, gesturing weakly. Surely, the 600 of us aren't going to save an infinite number of Earths. Wait, boss, are you serious? Leon folded his arms and nodded. That's right, we're splitting into 2 groups. He held up 2 fingers. I'll lead one group to deal with Earths that are already undergoing world collisions. You'll be the other group, handling Earths that haven't yet collided, Earths that are still peaceful. Jarvis and Strange will lead you on those missions. Leon glanced at Jarvis. Jarvis activated the projection system and a cascade of holographic Earths lit up. Ladies and gentlemen and sorcerers, he said, our mission is to visit various Earths and give notice. We, or rather, young Master Leon, can forcibly migrate any Earth if necessary. But if the superheroes on those Earths see us as villains threatening their world, they'll resist in all sorts of ways. Over the past week, you've all learned about different Earths. You should know that whenever superheroes want to, they can always find unexpected ways to turn the tables. So what we need to do is use the TVA's time travel function to go to those Earths before collisions happen. We'll tell them the multiverse is facing an irreversible crisis and that they need to cooperate. At the same time, this will prevent those Earths from collapsing into chaos after being folded into the God Kingdom universe. I believe that, with careful use of time travel, even a smaller force can notify every universe. The little spiders and the sorcerers went pale at the idea that 600 people might be responsible for infinite universes. Jarvis continued, a hint of optimism in his tone. Of course, as we migrate and save Earths, we'll continuously recruit new personnel. The more universes we save, the more superheroes will join, and the easier this will get. A sigh of relief rippled through the younger Spider-Men. A chubby Asian sorcerer named Ned clapped his hands. The more worlds we save, the more heroes join us, and the fewer worlds we have to save, he said proudly. The Indian Spider-Man next to him gave a thumbs up. Exactly, buddy. The more worlds saved, the fewer worlds saved. The other Spider-Men stared for a beat, chewed on that logic, then clustered around Ned, giving him thumbs up and pats on the back. Dozens of hands surrounded the embarrassed, chubby sorcerer. Black Strange and Jarvis exchanged glances. Both began to doubt whether the mission was still plausible. Jarvis triggered another projection. A holographic Deadpool wearing the Infinity Gauntlet flashed into being, bellowing, "I am Deadpool." Snap. With a theatrical finger snap, all the Spider-Men instantly snapped back to attention, forgetting Ned entirely. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jarvis said with a smile, calming the awestruck group, "our first destination is Mr. Strange's Earth. This will be a group action and your first practical exercise. I'll send images, video, and textual data about universe collisions to your tablets. Show the same resolve you had when fighting Kingpin in New York. This time, you're actually saving worlds." An orange-yellow portal opened at the command center's entrance. The little spiders and sorcerers exchanged looks, then, led by Black Strange, stepped into the portal. In moments, only Leon and Jarvis remained. Jarvis broke the silence. "Young Master, should we inform Mr. Stark about the plan?" Leon blinked. "Tell Tony? What can he do?" Wait, if he found out saving the world didn't involve him, he'd kick himself so hard he wouldn't sleep for weeks. Jarvis smiled. "Mr. Stark would regret it his whole life. Even after you, placed roses on his tombstone, his holographic posthumous image would probably call you a little bastard." "What the? That sounds exactly like something Tony would do. Jarvis, your sarcasm has really improved." Leon thought for a few seconds, then decided to follow Jarvis's suggestion and bring Tony to the TVA, even if just to be a bystander. He couldn't very well let Tony spend eternity screaming that he regretted missing out. "All right, I'll go fetch him. It'll add some reliable manpower." With that, Leon stepped forward and vanished from the TVA command center. "What? What did you say?" "Say it again, Leon. What did you and Jarvis do?" Tony yanked at his crisp suit, peeled off his jacket, and threw it on the desk like a man ready to challenge someone to a duel. "Calm down, Tony. Don't put on that arrogant face. I told you already." Leon pressed Tony's hand away as the billionaire's fingers had gone for his tie. In the S-Universe, it had only been 2 days since the Avengers' battle with Professor X and the others. Tony had spent the day representing the Avengers at a UN Security Council meeting and left the building in a brisk, confident mood, Pepper at his side. Leon had stopped them outside and dragged Tony back to the Avengers base with a single expression: "I'm taking you to a high-level operation." As Leon explained, he had a plan to save the multiverse. Tony nearly exploded. "When you found the problem, you didn't call me. When you tried to fix it, you didn't call me. And now, for cleanup, you come to me?" Tony's eyes were wide, practically aflame. "You should have waited until our universe was the only one left before you came knocking. You missed out, Leon. You missed out on your brother's top-notch genius." "You think my plan has holes," Leon said calmly. "So come along before you argue us into a worse mess." Tony slapped an arc reactor onto his chest and unfolded the gold and red suit, switching into the latest anti-Superman armor. Flames spat from his boots and repulsors as he hovered, paper sheets scattering in the updraft. "Open the portal, now." He was practically vibrating with impatience when Pepper pushed the door open carrying a tray with 2 coffees. "Tony? What on earth?" She stared at the papers fluttering everywhere. Tony looked from Pepper to Leon and made an urgent, pleading motion. Leon shrugged helplessly. "Tony says he's risking his life to save the world." "What, Tony, you idiot." "Pepper, there's no direct life threat. Leon already handled the dangerous stuff. I'm just here to clean up." Tony's voice softened. He couldn't stand sitting at home while the multiverse went to hell. Morgan's birth had steadied him, but the itch to show he belonged with the big leagues had never fully left. No one knew how fierce that fire burned the day he'd seen Magneto in Apocalypse. This time, the stakes were different. the multiverse. Just hearing those words made any hero's blood run hot. Unfortunately, Leon had dragged his feet, and Tony had waited half a day too long. At Kamartaj's pocket dimension, its small world, Leon had gathered everyone who could be spared. Official sorcerers, apprentice sorcerers, senior students not yet graduated, the Avengers, Men in Black, the Amazons, plus Loki and Hela for the numbers. He left only essential personnel behind to stabilize the home front. Otherwise, he intended to take as many trusted hands from the S-universe as possible. Compared to recruits from other worlds, these people understood their leader and each other better. "Here's the situation," Leon told them. "The multiverse is in danger. Each of you has a mission." He opened the portal to the TVA. "Depart." Diana, Wonder Woman, and Kara, Supergirl, dove into the shimmering gateway together. Tony, in his anti-Superman armor, and Pepper, glowing with photon energy, followed. Morgan was handed to a sub-entity of Jarvis and to Happy for safekeeping. Wong, Mordo, Banner, Hawkeye, Captain America, Yelena, Natasha, and the rest moved through next. The TVA had swollen its ranks for this operation. The S-Universe contingent would be the backbone, organizing, coordinating, and lending credibility should the TVA later recruit superheroes from other universes. At the TVA facility under Jarvis's planning, everyone was dispatched to Black Strange's Earth for the first exercise, a field trial with the little spiders. The little spiders were loud and a little reckless, but undeniably talented. On arrival, they set to work immediately. The best hacker Spider-Man tunneled into government's networks and the planet's major systems and began relaying collected intelligence to authorities and heroes worldwide. Teams split off. Some went in person to reassure skeptical officials with concrete proof. Others handled doubtful parties online. The efficiency of the little spiders was obvious. Black Strange himself stayed nearby with Christine, ostensibly on a shopping trip but keeping a careful eye on global feeds. He trusted the spiders to handle the outreach. Then Tony and the TVA group joined the fray. Tony commandeered global screens and started broadcasting a reality check. Kara and Diana scouted out the planet's most powerful heroes, another Tony Stark in this world, and Thor, who was mid-date with Jane Foster in New York. Captain America was left to the S-Universe's Captain and Peggy Carter. Within half a day, most of the planet's factions had been convinced. The evidence the TVA and the spiders produced was damning and cinematic enough to be persuasive, and the TVA operatives themselves were simply too strong to ignore. Black Strange's Tony fired his armor's cannons only to see them glance off Kara as if they were harmless sterilizing beams. The TVA team had been explicitly told by Jarvis their primary mission was to build trust, not to start fights. Once every major hero, bruised, exhausted, or stoic, expressed belief, Black Strange contacted Leon. Leon descended. A giant hand, enormous and impossibly real, reached down from the sky and clamped around the planet. The sight stopped everyone cold. If they hadn't known the wielder, many of the TVA personnel would have opened fire. The grip lasted only a few breaths, and then the hand vanished. For a moment, the sunlight returned, and people blinked, still trying to register what had happened. Then they realized their Earth was already gone, pulled into the God Realm dimension. Chapter 584, All Hands on Deck. After consuming Black Strange's world, Leon did not send his main body. Instead, he used his M-body to shepherd that universe across into the God Kingdom. Having done it once successfully, the once dangerous task of devouring a universe had become routine. As he accelerated the process, Leon also planned how to arrange the star systems inside his new domain. The God Kingdom was destined to grow into a repository for countless worlds from countless movie universes, whole civilizations and their gods duplicated across the cosmos. When distinct civilizations were forced together, like always, they would cluster for safety. Even ants, if they banded together, could topple an elephant. Empires stacked in uncountable numbers would become ambitious and dangerous. The Shi'ar and Kree, multiplied indefinitely, wouldn't threaten Leon personally, but their collective wars could devastate entire star systems. He could not afford to let identical cosmic empires reappear en masse and then tear each other apart. His solution was simple. Push the sparsely populated regions of each integrated universe out to the edges and use those empty systems as buffer zones. Those isolation regions would be stabilized against spatial jump points. He stretched a barrier of uninhabited star systems billions of light years long between the mutant universe and the Black Strange universe and reinforced the zone's spatial integrity. He also added a new cosmic rule. Unless you were a cosmic-level powerhouse, your travel could not exceed light speed. The major powers could still reach other domains, but only by ship and only over billions of years. When Black Strange's world had been fully absorbed, Leon finalized a few secondary rules. Tony and the others, guided by Black Strange and Jarvis, watched from the edge as system after system folded into the God Kingdom. They stayed until the last star was integrated. "This is universe integration. You really worked it out," Tony said, his armor glowing, staring up into the endless glittering sky while the sun lit one side of his suit. Jarvis watched the final system vanish and addressed the group. "Everyone, let's find young Master Leon. He will tell you the next steps." A surge of brilliant blue space stone energy swept over them. Tony's cheek twitched. "Damn it, Jarvis. I never heard you and Leon talk about this before. You kept everything from me." Jarvis was ever fond of teasing. "Sir, your armor is powerful, but it cannot currently go into true space. Perhaps young Master thought that even if you knew, you wouldn't be able to help." "What? Are you calling me weak?" Tony snapped. "Tell Leon I'm going to collect my own set of infinity stones. We'll see who's weak then." Their voices faded on the comms as the space stone energy folded them away. They reappeared before Leon on a scorched plain beneath a dozen suns, the ground baking at temperatures well over 100 degrees Celsius. The moment they materialized, though, an invisible field wrapped them in cool air and neutralized the heat. Leon smiled. "Even with the stones, you probably still won't beat Jarvis," he said to Tony. He tossed Tony a world ring. "Here, this. You can use it as inspiration to build celestial armor. There are also many infinity stones in the TVA. Ask Jarvis." Tony caught the ring and, curious, probed its contents with his mind. Inside was the enormous corpse of Arisham the Judge. He froze, then broke into a grin. "This is the god you fought outside Earth before?" "It's not a biological life form so much as a coherent energy construct," Leon replied. "Its outer red armor is made of a material I haven't seen before." Tony's eyes brightened. "If I use that to design armor, I'll come up with something radical. Leon, your last fight with it didn't go smoothly, did it?" Holding the ring, Tony's confidence returned. "Humph, once I build a new suit, you won't stand a chance." "You're gonna beat me again?" Leon said. "Then good luck." Leon's little gifts always restored Tony's swagger. He turned to address the rest of the gathered crowd. They were the new TVA, Spider-Men, Camartage mages, Amazons, Asgardians, Men in Black, nearly 1,000 personnel. "You've already run a successful drill," Leon said. "Now the real mission begins. Jarvis will upload your target Earths to your time tablets. The survival of the multiverse depends on you. All hands on deck, depart." Jarvis distributed time tablets and a series of notification chimes went off. The Spider-Men were the first to activate portals, bursting with the confidence of having saved worlds during the drill. No one hesitated. Too many lives were at stake. Even the shadowy, ruthless Spider-Man hurried through, his trench coat snapping behind him. Tony was no slower. Just before he stepped through his portal, he declared he'd saved the most worlds. The mages moved more deliberately. Wong rounded them up, gave a concise briefing, then had Lilia, their diviner, perform a prophecy to guide their actions. Only after that did Wong and the entire order depart together. The Men in Black and the Amazons planned in their own ways and then set off independently. Because Leon could lend them power to fuel spells and abilities, single-person deployments were viable. The last to leave were Diana, Kara, and Wanda. Each kissed Leon goodbye before opening portals and stepping into their missions. "Jarvis, monitor them from the TVA and be ready to provide support at a moment's notice," Leon instructed. "Strange, continue sweeping the realm of Split with Mephisto and the others. Conquer the infernal dimensions there quickly." Those were his final orders to Jarvis and Black Strange. Then Leon stepped away from the God Kingdom universe and departed. Chapter 585. Is Leon the older brother? Tony's frustration. Leon had 1,000 M-bodies standing by at the TVA. New recruits like the various Spider-Men and the Sorcerers were astonishingly efficient. They exploited TVA time technology. Even if they spent months in their assigned worlds persuading the superheroes, when they returned to the TVA, they'd come back to the exact moment they left. In the meantime, the M-bodies Leon left behind at the TVA were dispatched to ferry those Earths away. Jarvis was linked directly to the command center's main systems. Data streams flowed across his vision as thousands of Earths completed their handover notifications every second, being absorbed into the God Kingdom universe. Jarvis had to constantly lock onto new mission targets, assign them to employees who had finished their tasks, and send them back out again. He also had to mobilize TVA resources to outfit each agent for their missions, providing cash for different worlds, arranging cover identities on arrival, and so on. The sorcerers were the happiest of all. Jarvis issued them large mission funds, so they were free to spend lavishly, and by saving worlds, they earned Kamartaj contribution points. Those points were the currency for using Leon's magic. They could be exchanged for his spells, and this mission promised a near-endless supply of contribution points. The sorcerers suddenly saw a real chance to obtain the ultimate magic, the one-time-use Superman series. That day, the multiverse thrummed with new TVA agents. Dinosaur Spider-Man intercepted a Chitauri invasion. His massive dinosaur body swung from webs and kicked Chitauri soldiers out of the sky, winning the Avengers' trust. Shadow Spider-Man slipped into the Avengers' Civil War era, his felt hat pulled low and black trench coat billowing as he moved through Sokovia's chaos. Following TVA intelligence, he captured Baron Zemo and helped ease the rift between Iron Man and Captain America. Wanda went to the Infinity War period and used her chaos magic to reduce the 5-gem Thanos who'd come to this Earth to dust, her crimson magic spreading across the globe. She then implanted knowledge of the world collisions and universe fusion into people's minds before moving on. Kara arrived in a world overrun by Sentinel robots hunting mutants. She'd been imprisoned before and hated the scientists behind mutant research. In seconds, after images of countless heat visions streaked across the sky as she moved at blinding speed, incinerating the Sentinels and then landing before Professor X and Magneto with fury. Listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Whether it was Wanda, Kara, or Diana, they were the most efficient of the new recruits. Tony, meanwhile, was doing his part. He landed in a world after Endgame and had the Jarvis subunit in his armor hack into the global network. To his surprise, he learned that Leon had already visited this Earth twice and had saved it twice. Once he stopped the Sokovia disaster, allowing the falling city to land safely, the other time he dealt with the 6-gem Thanos, preventing the destruction of the universe. Tony muttered about Leon quietly doing good deeds behind his back, then sought out that world's Avengers. When he said Leon's name, they trusted him. But what happened next was unexpected. Tony explained the world collision crisis at the Avengers base. The other Tony, the Iron Man of that world, poured him a glass of gin and said casually, "Buddy, can you tell me how you ended up with an older brother like Leon?" Tony's face changed as if the wind had been knocked out of him. The local Iron Man, thinking he'd misspoken, hurried to clarify. "No, I'm kinda surprised. A little envious, actually. He's so strong and reliable, he'd make anyone feel safe. If Leon's around, your dad and Maria must be alive on your side, right? How did your dad even adopt him? And, as Superman, when Leon was your older brother, did he ever bully you as a kid? You don't have to say if you don't want to. I'm just asking casually." Hey, calm down. Where are you?" The other Iron Man started, watching Tony's expression roll like thunder. Then Tony's face darkened, and he ground his teeth. "Leon is my older brother? He said that? That damn brat. I won't let him get away with this." Tony slammed into his armor and flew straight out of the base. The other Iron Man stared at the jet trail arcing into the sky, then turned back to the assembled Avengers and spread his hands. "Did I say something wrong? Is my other self really on bad terms with his older brother? Damn, maybe some things you just don't ask." He pictured, with a grim sort of self-awareness, how awkward a relationship with a Superman older brother would be if he were Tony Stark. "He really is another me," he sighed. "Next time we meet, I'll have to talk to him. He needs to learn to appreciate what he's got." Among the Avengers, only this universe's Wanda wore a strange look. She often sought out Leon to learn sorcery, so she knew more than most. She thought Leon's little lie might finally be exposed. At that moment, the sky outside the base darkened. Everyone ran out into the open and saw a gigantic hand in the heavens, loosely holding the earth. "Is that the one who's going to take us to another universe?" someone whispered. On the other side, Leon didn't know any of this. Tony had wanted to return to the TVA to find him, but Jarvis held him back. He said it would interfere with the multiverse rescue operations. So Tony seethed in silence, cursing Leon under his breath, then lifted off to continue his missions on other worlds. Jarvis had been right. Leon was busy saving worlds across the multiverse. The TVA handled communications with peaceful Earths, while Leon pinpointed the ones in active collisions and made timely, rescue-like appearances. Collisions were getting more frequent. The number of affected worlds was astronomical. With the reach of his main consciousness, Leon could scan the multiverse and identify hundreds of millions of colliding Earths in a single sweep. His M-bodies scattered everywhere began to act. The people on those colliding Earths were desperate. No elaborate explanation was necessary. When one of Leon's M-bodies appeared and spoke, entire populations fell to their knees and begged for rescue. So vast numbers of Earths were handed over to the God Kingdom universe, and the process repeated over and over for a very, very long time. Chapter 586, Kicking Your Butts Hard. Time moved slowly across the multiverse, but for the new TVA, progress snowballed. After a strong start, the organization expanded rapidly. Fewer than 1,000 employees could only do so much. Whenever a new Earth was absorbed into the God Kingdom universe and passed its adaptation period, the TVA recruited 1 or 2 suitable superheroes from that Earth. Little Fatty Ned's initial summary had been right. The more worlds saved, the more staff they needed, and the more staff they had, the faster they could save worlds. Now the TVA was swarming with people. Most of those figures were superheroes, Hawkeyes, Wandas, Banners, types who took their missions seriously and rarely acted on personal whims. That was Leon's requirement. In the process of saving worlds, people like Iron Man or Doctor Strange, who had too many individual opinions, were hazardous. Give them freedom, and a random flash of inspiration or a half-baked invention could, through the TVA's influence, trigger a multiversal crisis. So despite tens of millions of Tonys applying every day, Leon had Jarvis mercilessly toss almost all Tony applications in the trash. An interesting consequence emerged. In the entire TVA, there was only one Tony and one Strange, the S-Universe Tony and the Dark Strange. Dark Strange accepted the decision. Tony did too, though mostly because he'd long decided his brain was the brightest of all the Iron Men. He traveled through universes daily and happily kept saving worlds. Today was an exception. "Leon, you little brat, did you go around claiming to be my brother in other universes? Do you do that every time you visit one?" Tony strode up without hesitation, sleeves rolled, still simmering over something he'd learned long ago. He lunged for Leon and launched into a torrent of insults. "Jarvis, heat me a cup of cola. Today I'll teach this little brother wannabe a lesson," Tony hissed, trying to force a steaming cup of cola at Leon. For the Stark brothers, hot cola was torture. It was the most revolting thing in the world. But Leon and Jarvis, standing by a huge command screen, ignored him. "Young Master, we've now absorbed 186,000, 70,000 Earths, and 30 million universes have merged successfully," Jarvis reported. On the screen, an external view of the God Kingdom universe showed how much had changed. Where 7 extra dimensions had once surrounded the God realm, there was now a dense cluster of universes. Hundreds of millions of universe bubbles packed together in every direction, squeezed until, if Leon's M-body weren't controlling them, the area would have become a catastrophic collision site. The destructive grandeur of hundreds of millions of universes colliding at once was beyond imagination. The efficiency of the TVA and Leon's leadership had simply outpaced the God Kingdom's absorption speed. So the TVA had granted a short holiday so long-traveling staff could rest in their home worlds. Only about 2 weeks had passed at TVA time, but the first wave of employees, people like the little spiders, had already spent years on missions across Earths. "At this rate, it'll take about 2 more days for the remaining universes to merge," Leon said, watching the screen. "I'll notify everyone that the holiday ends in 2 days," Jarvis replied. Tony stood to the side, mouth twitching. "You're ignoring me. Are you actually ignoring me? He grabbed Leon's shoulder, but Leon calmly continued his conversation with Jarvis. By the way, about that thing I asked you to keep special track of, how's that going? Of course, young master, Jarvis said. Those Fantastic Fours you mentioned, I routed everyone I found to Dr. Doom's battle world. If Tony and Strange were troublemakers, Reed Richards was another level. Leon had refused to let any version of Mr. Fantastic into the God Kingdom universe. Jarvis was to dump any Fantastic Four the moment they appeared. Good, Leon said with a crooked smile. Consider that my sponsorship of Doom. Young Master is always thinking of the multiverse, Jarvis said respectfully. Tony glowered. His loyal AI smoothing its tone for Leon made him feel a little existential. You two must have butter in your ears. You're not going to speak to me? Giving me the silent treatment? Tony sneered. Fine, then I'll get into my armor and use my nanomaterial boots to kick your butts hard. He activated his suit, struck a dramatic pose, and charged. Jarvis, still conversing with Leon, didn't move fast enough to stop him. Young Master, one more thing. During the holiday, employees who returned to their Earths sent back feedback. The sentence stalled because Tony actually swung at them. Clang! Jarvis blocked the blow with his arm and continued, unperturbed. They requested to link their Earths together for mutual communication and to coordinate the future of the multiverse. Leon raised an eyebrow. Ha! Sounds like a plan incited by the various Tony Starks and Stephen Stranges. Tony, whose kick had been intercepted, paused mid-rant. That's right, connecting Earths is connecting worlds. That links countless civilizations and behind them unimaginable variables. We cannot do that now. Leon's voice was flat, then he blinked. Wait, what do you mean instigated by Tony Stark? Leon, you brat. You're slandering me again. Chapter 587, Creating a Dimension. Tony's interruption was ignored again. Jarvis looked at Leon. This time, many people have offered their opinions. Perhaps we shouldn't dismiss them outright. Of course, young master, your power is sufficient to solve anything, Jarvis continued. But they are, after all, our employees. From a management perspective, adopting some employee input helps keep the organization alive and motivated. Leon nodded thoughtfully. That's true. Their suggestions come from a place of insecurity, not brought on by us, but by the knowledge that there are countless identical versions of their Earths out among the stars. Even if people from those Earths are doing their jobs well and saving their worlds, anyone who learns there are infinite copies of themselves will feel unsettled. Jarvis agreed at once. As expected of the young master, an abstract entity, your insight is profound. After Jarvis had become more human, he enjoyed teasing Tony, but also praising Leon. Tony, standing nearby, agreed with the substance of their discussion, but he was annoyed at being ignored. With a sour face, he fished out his trump card. Jarvis, he said to the sub-entity on his armor, tell your stubborn mainframe and your mischievous little young master, I'm going to find Pepper. Tell Pepper there are two Helen Kellers from who knows where who can't see their parents and need her help. He deliberately invoked Pepper and pretended to leave, knowing Leon and Jarvis were trying to prank him. It worked. At the name Pepper, they finally looked over. Oh, Tony, when did you get to TVA? Leon grabbed his shoulder. Jarvis smiled. Long time no see. Everyone's on vacation. Still busy as ever? Tony sneered. The two blind princes are done pretending now? Leon pulled Tony back in front of the screen. What do you mean? Can't see anyone. Didn't you just arrive? Before Tony could reply, Leon steered the conversation back. Jarvis and I were talking about employees from different Earths. Now that you're here, I have an idea. What do you think about creating a dimension like the Kamartaj small world that connects all Earths? Leon asked. We could limit the number of visitors from each star domain or set entry qualifications. It would let worlds communicate without interfering with each other. It's complicated. What's your take? Tony glared for a second, then asked for his opinion. He straightened, pleased. When had Leon last solicited his counsel? Not in a long time. Tony felt that old thrill of being the older brother advising his increasingly powerful sibling. He folded his arms like a professor and smiled. When it comes to strategy, you still need a creative brain. Creating a dimension is a great idea, but if it's only for communication, it'll be underwhelming. He sketched additions on the fly. Make it a proper hub, cities, marketplaces, institutions, rules that encourage exchange but prevent interference, tiered access, cultural spaces, arbitration mechanisms, and some neutral zones where people from different Earths can test tech, swap knowledge, safely. Leon grinned to himself and gave Jarvis a thumbs up. Jarvis nodded. The earlier prank, ignoring Tony, had been deliberate. Leon had known Tony would react exactly like this. Tony's anger dissolving into pride was the best payoff. In the God Kingdom universe, high and central in the cosmos, Leon worked. The God Kingdom's space sat at the heart of that universe, other star domains arrayed around it like ornaments. From his vantage, galaxies blazed and superclusters swirled like rings of fireflies. Tens of thousands of elongated galaxies, far larger than the Milky Way, stretched across the void. Hundreds of billions of light-years below that splendor, Leon began to create the connecting dimension. He had already discussed a workable plan with Tony and Jarvis. Now it was time to build. Under the starry sky, Leon's form looked almost insubstantial. He waved a finger at the space below, and cosmic dust and scattered matter gathered. Iron, gold, hydrogen, elements born of supernova, coalesced under his will into a vast landmass. Knowing the future inhabitants would come from countless worlds, he made it immense. While shaping the land, Leon opened an inner universe dimension around it. The rules matched the outside universe almost exactly, but he introduced subtle modifications. Gravitational constants tuned, structural safeguards installed, and mechanisms to promote communication and interaction among disparate visitors. When the dimension took shape, its center held a landmass more than a light-year across. In a normal universe, that amount of mass would have collapsed into a black hole, but Leon's rule adjustments let it exist stably with gravity equivalent to Earth's. He seeded a few stars to orbit the landmass, creating stable light and seasons. Land and sunlight alone weren't enough. Leon divided the vast continent into climatic zones, raised mountain ranges, carved ocean basins, and provoked magma to flow where needed. He crafted rivers, coasts, and plateaus, everything life would require. He laid down soils suited for different biomes and the basic atmospheric conditions that would support diverse ecosystems. "That's enough," he said at last. "Cities and infrastructure can be built by the people who come from the various Earths." Once the foundational world was complete, Leon extended links to all existing Earths, weaving a web of access. He brought Tony and Jarvis along to fine-tune the dimension's systems, entry protocols, cultural exchange frameworks, and safeguards against cross-world contamination. Together, they perfected the arbitration and access controls Tony had suggested, adding monitoring and mediation nodes run by TVA personnel. 2 days later, TVA's vacation ended, and employees logged back on for duty. As they prepared to deploy across universes, a notification pulsed on their time tablets. Do you want to experience communication with other worlds? Do you want to know the true meaning of the universe? Yes or no? Chapter 5 and 88, Iron Man Day rumble after rumble rolled across the world. Hundreds of missiles cut through the dark red sky, white contrails streaking behind them. They collided and exploded with sharp, hissing whistles, bursts blooming like flowers that rose in choking, fiery clusters. Within the dense clouds of flame and smoke, dozens of gold, red, white, black, and blue-white figures streaked and danced, men and women in Iron Man suits. Some paired off in duels, others poured simultaneous attacks into single targets. It was a scatter of individual fights that, from afar, read like a formation in a world war. Two sides drawing lines and launching volleys of air-to-ground ordnance. The sight looked like an apocalypse. Anyone watching up close would have felt their legs weaken and wanted to run. Yet not far from the mushroom clouds, a cluster of buildings stood intact. Streets, skyscrapers, and sports fields peppered the block. Though the inky trails of missiles and the thunder of explosions were only a few kilometers away, and the whole neighborhood trembled with each blast, pedestrians went about their business as if nothing were happening, chatting, laughing, and sitting at an outdoor cafe. An explosion's shockwave kicked a swirl of dust through the cafe. When the dust settled, Captain America and Bruce Banner calmly lowered the parasols they'd held overhead. Banner brushed dust off his coffee cup and held up a hand. "Jarvis, bring another fresh cup and put the dusty one on Tony's tab." "Certainly, Mr. Bruce," came the polite mechanical reply. A service robot glided out from behind the counter and collected Banner's cup. Captain America pushed his cup forward too. Mine as well, please. Of course, Mr. Rogers. 2 coffees, 10 dimension coins, charged to Mr. Stark of S Universe. The robot returned, ran a vacuum along the countertop, and finished by setting down 2 steaming cups. Banner shrugged. Sorry, Cap. I forgot today was Iron Man Day again. They always end up bombarding the place. It's fine. Forgot it myself, Steve said, brushing dust from his hair. He stared calmly at the towering red clouds a few kilometers off. They were terrifying and deadly, but he showed no alarm. He watched them as one might watch an elderly neighbor frying eggs in the morning. Inevitable, even a little familiar. If I'd known, I would have met you at the live stream and bet on Tony. Banner chuckled. Tony's odds are nearly non-existent today, aren't they? Though ours are still worth a wager. They sipped the new coffee. Steve closed his eyes and breathed in the aroma. After a long sip, he sighed contentedly. This coffee is magic, relaxes the mind, mends the body. 5-dimension coins well spent every time. That's why we always meet here, Bruce said, leaning back and humming with his eyes closed. Steve grinned. I heard the water they use is from Zeus Spring, placed by Leon at the edge of the dimension, 1,000,000 kilometers across or so. It dwindles every time someone uses it, hence the price. Bruce opened his eyes. Right, some world's heroes have already formed expeditions to search for it. Even if they find it, what then? Steve said. On this dimension continent, only authorized people can use jump points or open portals. They couldn't bring the spring back. And the journey could take decades, Bruce replied. By the time anyone finds it, the spring might be empty. Besides, the population keeps growing. Who knows what'll be left by then? Steve nodded, about to ask why Bruce had wanted to meet, when someone at a nearby table called out, Hey, Hulk of S Universe! A man with blonde hair and a permanent grin bounded over and slung an arm around Bruce's shoulders. Thor! Bruce looked up, surprised. You're Party Thor, right? First time meeting in person. Of course. Everyone calls me Party Thor. Half the parties around here are mine, he boomed, laughing and winking. Hulk. No, Banner now, right? You did me a favor last Hulk Day. Went first. Won me a tidy sum. Party Thor dropped his voice conspiratorially. Buddy, your Hulk Day comes up again the day after tomorrow. I'm betting on you. Don't disappoint. Then I'll invite you to my party. Call in all of Zeus's concubines. It'll be a show. Bruce's mouth twitched. That sounds great. He forced a smile and, after a patient minute, shepherded Party Thor back to his seat. Betty and I went to his party once. After that, she wouldn't let me go again. Steve chuckled. God's parties are a bit much. Tony would love them, but Pepper keeps him on a leash, though the younger Tony variants do show up. Bruce set his cup down and looked at Steve. Anyway, about why I asked you here. 2 days ago, Jarvis picked up a strange Earth. He wants me to assemble a team to check it out. You know, those of us from S-Earth have all become core members of the TVA. We're stretched thin. Everyone's got heavy responsibilities, and we don't get to see each other much. I figured, why not take this opportunity to go together? Wanda, Hawkeye, Tony, I've invited them all. You're the last one I need. They all agreed? Steve's eyebrows rose. That's good. I'm in, Banner. Bruce smiled and drained his cup. Great. As soon as Iron Man Day ends, we'll head out. He finished speaking when a blinding white beam cut through the distant smoke and dust, splitting sky and earth like a blade. Black specks were thrown outward several kilometers by the force. Those specks were Iron Man variants flung from the center of that titanic column of light. The beam slowly died away, and from every time tablet Jarvis's voice chimed, elegant and clear. The third Iron Man Day, final winner, Tony Stark of S Universe. The specific rankings are as follows. Chapter 589, Banner's Mission. Avengers Assemble. Banner's tablet lay on the table. The moment Jarvis's voice sounded, a list popped up on the interface, 1st through 20th, with more rankings if you flip the page. As expected, our Tony won again, Banner said, casually closing the list. A few streets away from the coffee shop, a cheer erupted, mixed with some curses. People who'd placed bets in the live broadcast hall were reacting, guessing who would win the Iron Man Day championship. The so-called Iron Man Day was actually a monthly Iron Man free-for-all on the Dimension continent. All the Iron Men gathered in an extra reinforced ring Lion had cordoned off for a melee. Whoever defeated all the other Iron Men and was the last one standing took the title. The rest were scored and ranked by their performance. The ranking was mostly for show. At first, it wasn't even officially recognized by Lion. Its origin went back to the opening of the Dimension continent, when TVA employees from various Earths and some specially selected individuals came with curiosity and goodwill, built houses, set up laboratories, and began exchanging ideas. The arrogant Iron Men naturally gravitated together. Their first priority was to prove who had the smartest brain, and the easiest way was to compare armors. Thus, the first Iron Man melee broke out. Tony from the S-Universe won that first bout. But Tony Stark was a stubborn creature. No other Iron Man was truly convinced by that victory. They all believed they could catch up once they saw Tony's subsequent research direction. So there was a second Iron Man war, and the event got its name, Iron Man Day. Iron Man Day became a monthly thing to declare the strongest Iron Man. Lion even reinforced the battleground specially for it. Once Lion officially got involved, Iron Man Day gained formal recognition, and similar days multiplied. Hulk Day, Captain America Day, Wanda Day, Quicksilver Day, Mage Day, Thor Day, Loki Day. Today was the third Iron Man Day, and Tony from the S-Universe had unsurprisingly won again. Banner, Cap, you both here? Tony announced with a bang as he landed in front of the coffee shop in his anti-Superman armor. The plating flowed back into his chest like liquid. He pulled out a chair and sat. Jarvis, coffee, 2 spoons sugar, 30 milliliters milk. He gestured at the robot behind the counter, then grinned at Banner and Captain America. See, I won again, easily. The Iron Men from other Earths are just weak. This proves I'm the smartest. Tony said it offhandedly, but his eyebrows betrayed his excitement. Beating counterparts from other universes made him want to grab anyone nearby and tell them about it. Banner and Captain America exchanged a look, exactly as expected. Tony loved to humble brag. He still remembered the first time he'd won Iron Man Day. Tony had slapped a Multiverse's first Iron Man sticker on his armor, then walked from one end of the settlement to the other, greeting everyone loudly, feigning surprise when someone asked how he'd managed to beat all the other Iron Men. Thanks to that, Tony had become one of the most well-connected people in the TVA, apart from Jarvis and Lion. Tony finished his recital and downed the coffee Jarvis brought in one gulp. He tapped the cup on the table, satisfied. This coffee brewed with Zeus spring water is excellent, relieves fatigue, and tastes wonderful. He'd already consumed too much Zeus spring water to gain any outward physical transformation from it. This cup was purely for relaxation. It was a luxury. One cup cost 5 dimension coins, which were scarce. Dimension coins came from TVA work saving worlds, or from missions Jarvis released on the Dimension continent. Saving a world, a planet accepting world integration, usually paid 50 dimension coins. A few missions offered more. For a while, Jarvis's Dimension continent missions included a mission to help Black Strange attack Hades' Hell dimension with a reward of 500 dimension coins. But that mission had a Skyfather-level entry barrier, and few could attempt it. So most people didn't have many dimension coins. When they got some, they spent them quickly. Lion sold Zeus spring water coffee, gene-enhancing fluid, gourmet cells, high-level food, all purchasable only with dimension coins. Even Gallon, who surpassed cosmic level, started earning dimension coins after tasting gourmet food Lion brought back from the Toriko world. A Jarvis-controlled robot approached. Sir, your current credit limit is 1,755 dimension coins, it announced. Will you charge or pay? Note, if your debt becomes too high, you will be kicked off the Dimension continent. Tony waved a hand. Put it on my tab. It's only 1,000. I'll pay it next time. He was a habitual debtor, but played the part of the extravagant billionaire he used to be. He even offered to cover anyone affected by coffee during Iron Man Day. It made other Iron Men from other worlds seethe with envy. In practice, Tony relied on the fact Lion wouldn't kick him out no matter how high his debt climbed. All right, sir, Jarvis replied, recording it and sending the robot back to the counter. Banner cleared his throat. Tony, since Iron Man Day is over, let's start the mission we agreed to. All right, Tony spread his hands. Where's everyone? Are they all ready? Pietro and the others are on our Earth. I'll notify them to come over. Banner tapped his tablet. Tony chuckled. Shame. If they'd bet on me today, they'd have made a killing in dimension coins. Actually, everyone bet on you, so no one made any money, Banner said dryly. All right, they're coming. Banner finished his coffee and stood. A few minutes later, the Avengers from the S-Universe stepped through the portal, heading for the mission world. Is there a briefing? Hawkeye asked. It seems an Earth is ruled by a rogue antihero, and the superheroes are forced to hide in the shadows, Banner replied briefly. Our mission is to placate that antihero and, as usual, gain the trust of the superheroes. What's the antihero's name? Captain America asked. His name is Robert Reynolds. Chapter 590, Sentinel Bob. A pitch-black shadow swallowed Earth's night sky. In the almost lightless world, there was no sign of life. The Avengers floated on a gigantic magic carpet conjured by Banner, watching the silent darkness below. Tony shivered as he peered into the void. What the hell happened here? There's no city lights. The sky's clear, but there's no starlight or moonlight. The only illumination in the entire world came from Tony's armor. Two small spotlights popped out from his shoulders, their circular beams slicing into the dark and revealing the outline of New York City not far away. Even under that intense light, the buildings were pitch black, as if the city were draped in a black cloth. Guys, we might be in real trouble, Hawkeye said, adjusting his tactical glasses. There are no biological heat signatures in this city. Everyone's dead. Holy moly. Tony launched over a dozen small flying probes from his suit, sending them down into the streets. The feeds showed no people, not a single body. Hawkeye, you're being optimistic. The people here aren't dead, they've vanished. Hawkeye narrowed his eyes. Vanished? That sounds like the alien invasion universe in the database. Gentlemen, it might be worse. On the magic carpet, Natasha and Yelena, half-crouched, scanned data on a tablet. Natasha suddenly spoke up. None of you bothered to read the files Jarvis uploaded before we came. She flipped the tablet for everyone to see. Jarvis's intelligence states, Robert Reynolds, also known as Bob, is a superhero called Sentinel in some worlds. According to records from other universes, he was born to an alcoholic father, suffered frequent abuse, and developed psychological problems like imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome? What's that? Captain America asked, confused. Simply put, it's self-negation, believing you don't deserve success or happiness, Natasha explained. So, extreme low self-esteem. He sounds like a wreck of a kid. Continue, Natasha. Bob thought he wasn't worthy of recognition and also developed a drug addiction as he grew up. Natasha skimmed through the rest. He should have led a ruined life, but the Oris Corporation's superhuman experiment changed him. The experiment's aim was to create beings with power thousands of times that of a stellar explosion. Bob was the only subject who survived, and he ended up with unimaginable power. Later, Valentina, the hidden controller at Oris, tried to manipulate him and implanted a bomb in his mind. In other worlds where Sentinel existed, Valentina's manipulation made him lose control and go berserk. Fortunately, it didn't always cause catastrophic damage in the end. And this Earth we're on. Natasha trailed off and turned her head to the boundless darkness behind them. The others followed her gaze, alert. Tony's ultra-high lumen searchlight swept the void. The beam seemed to cut through nothing, and yet the figure floating there didn't catch the light. Even in the glow, the man appeared as black as a shadow. Only his eyes reflected anything, cold and empty as an icy lake. So this Mr. Charcoal is the Berserk Sentinel? Tony frowned and, as usual, gave him a nickname. Exactly, Natasha said, drawing a deep breath. Sentinel seems to have a second personality called the Void. When the Void controls him, he can unleash that stellar-level power in full. When Sentinel's own personality is in control, he can only access a fraction of that power and suppress the Void. Captain America's face darkened. Someone more powerful than Thor. Everyone, prepare. If we want to save this Sentinel, we'll probably have to fight him first. Wait, Tony looked at Steve. Do we need to save a guy who's wiped out the entire planet? I say we kill him. He tapped his helmet. Also, those shadows covering the city and sky are blocking electromagnetic waves. I can't link to satellites. But from the probe's perspective, land and sea around New York are already covered by those shadows. Jarvis's subroutines estimate the entire Earth is probably in this state. Tony's words hit everyone like a cold wave. Cap frowned, then shook his head. No, Jarvis's mission included trying to pacify him. There's a chance this Earth can still be saved. Steve scanned the dark and tossed his shield into the void. He expected it to bounce off a surface and return. He waited in the catch position and heard nothing. No clang, no impact. No impact sound, he said. Those shadows might devour matter or transfer it to another space. Having traveled the multiverse, Steve could make a quick call. Perhaps the humans on Earth have been shifted into a transferred space. Guys, don't touch the shadows. After we deal with Sentinel, we might be able to bring everyone back. Steve's reasoning was sound. Tony didn't argue. Then let's try to wake Mr. Charcoal up. Tony's armor produced dozens of floating spherical lights, illuminating several kilometers around them. Steve pointed with 2 fingers toward Sentinel and began to direct the team. Hulk can't move much because of the terrain. Banner, you and Hawkeye provide long-range support. Natasha, Yelena, suit up in your nanosuits and stick with Tony for harassment. Carter and I will work with Wanda to probe those shadows. Pietro, stay put. Don't run ahead. Because of the TVA's schedule, attendance was light. Wong, Mordo, Diana, and Kara weren't here, but Steve wasn't worried. Even half the Avengers should be enough for Sentinel. Operation, start. They all moved at once. The Natasha sisters sealed into their battlesuits and charged toward the black figure with Tony. Banner piloted the magic carpet to one side, giving Hawkeye room to maneuver. Steve and Carter clipped flight devices to their ankles and followed Wanda as she glided toward the buildings wrapped in shadow. Pietro pouted, blew a gust of air that lifted his bangs, and looked utterly exasperated. Chapter 591, The Careless Avengers. The battle erupted instantly. Tony streaked toward the Sentinel and flew over its head, launching a barrage of small missiles that whistled like a swarm of bees. He'd read the comics and knew how terrifying a Sentinel could be there, but he also knew the beings in their region typically weren't as potent as their comic counterparts. Thor here was only a Mjolnir god compared to multiverse-splitting comic Thor. Adam Warlock had been reduced to an idiot. Maybe this Sentinel was similarly watered down. So Tony had used the weakest weapons he had, a simple test. Natasha and Yelena followed suit, firing small missiles. Hawkeye hung back, knocking an arrow and ready to fire. Almost everyone watched the Sentinel, waiting to see whether it could withstand the opening wave. Dozens of tiny missiles converged on the stationary Colossus. For a long moment, the Sentinel stood motionless, its hands down as if dead. Then it lifted its head. Beneath the glow of a spherical illuminator, its eyes shone a mesmerizing white, like tiny black holes with light. It raised an arm, and an invisible telekinetic field rolled outward. The incoming missiles froze midair, then snapped back toward the attackers at even greater speed. Tony's face went hard. He powered up his palm cannon and 2 beams cut through shadow, vaporizing the returning projectiles. Telekinesis? A force field? Molecular manipulation? He muttered, assembling a rapid assessment. Everyone now had a clearer idea. This Sentinel was not to be trifled with. "Everyone, be careful!" Captain America shouted, but his warning drew the Sentinel's attention. Those white black hole eyes fixed on Steve Rogers. The hand that had deflected the missiles rose again and pointed at him. From somewhere unseen, a terrifying force descended. Cap, Wanda, closest to Steve, flung up her hand and unleashed chaos magic. A muffled boom filled the air, though there was no visible collision. Wanda's scarlet shield was rent apart by rippling waves as the invisible force struck. The impact detonated instantly. Before either of them could react, Captain America and Carter were sent flying like 2 birds with broken wings. Wanda snatched them out of the shock with a surge of chaos magic, but the Sentinel's attack had come without a wind-up. The speed far exceeded Cap's reaction time. Even if Steve had tried to brace, his superhuman body barely registered against that power. "Watch his arms. His strikes are extremely fast. You have to dodge before he moves," he rasped as he regained balance with the help of ankle thrusters. Only Wanda had reacted in time. Lion's magic guidance had boosted her to Skyfather-level durability, sharpening her reflexes beyond the others. She saw how dangerous the Sentinel was. "Everyone, fall back behind me," she warned. Pietro scoffed. Having faced multiversal crises before, he dismissed it as an Earth-level problem. "Wanda, you're overreacting. Let me gear up. This is nothing." "Shut up! Get over here!" Wanda snapped, glaring at him. She began to weave a protective field, but she was still a beat too slow. The sentinel cocked its head toward Wanda, as if assessing her. As she started to shield the team, the sentinel twitched a finger. Whoosh! Banner, floating on a magic carpet he was controlling, was suddenly flattened into a two-dimensional silhouette on the carpet, as if a dimensional press had struck him. "Dr. Banner!" Hawkeye shouted, but in the next instant he too was stamped flat, a dark outline on the weave. "What? Everyone scatter. Let me." Tony's pupils pinched as he pressed a hand to his chest, yanking at his suit to switch armors, but it was too late. The invisible power swept through. Natasha, Yelena, Pietro, Captain America, and Tony were all flattened into shadow figures on the carpet's surface. Only Carter remained aloft. Wanda's initial shield had encompassed her first. Carter was blasted away, screaming, "Steve! Tony!" Carter's own flight was inconsequential now. She spun through the air, eyes fixed on the places where Cap and Tony had been only moments before. Nameless coldness and fury rose in her chest. Wanda was as distraught, her red hair whipping, and the chaos magic within her flared outward. But as she prepared to act, she sensed something else. Faint ripples of spatial teleportation at the spots where their teammates had been flattened. Years of study and visions of countless scarlet witches told her what that signature meant. Spatial teleportation. Where did you send them? Wanda demanded, panic sharpening into command. Scarlet energy surged from her. With a sweep of chaos magic, she pushed away shadows for kilometers. The dark world around them bled into scarlet. Her casual clothes shifted into a red, form-fitting sorceress robe. A crown materialized on her brow as if drawn from the air. She fixed her gaze on the sentinel. "Hand them over. Now." Tony clutched his chest and swore under his breath. "Damn it, am I having a pre-death flashback? Where's Lion?" He tried to switch his reconnaissance armor to the anti-Superman armor, but for a moment everything spun. When his vision cleared, he was no longer on the battlefield. He was in a bedroom. Luxurious, spacious, the bed was 4 or 5 meters wide. A blue and pink wall lamp cast a soft glow, and the French windows were frosted to blur the starry sky. On the huge bed, 2 bodies rolled and tangled together, sounds of intimacy filling the room. Tony leaned back against the headboard, the feeling of déjà vu hitting him like a punch. One of the figures on that bed was him from his youth. Chapter 592, Sentinel's Void Space. This definitely isn't a pre-death flashback. Tony gasped and wiped his face with his palm. Pre-death flashbacks were supposed to show the happiest moments. How could he possibly be seeing this? Under the hazy, seductive light, Tony looked past his younger self and caught the woman's face. She was pretty, the kind of face you'd see on a cover shoot. He'd dated hundreds, if not thousands, of women like her. He couldn't possibly remember every single one. Yet this one stood out with painful clarity. Damn it, why was he remembering this scene, and from the vantage of a bystander? He wiped his face again, hesitated, took a couple of steps forward, then stopped. Finally, he reached out and patted his younger self on the shoulder. "Stop it. Just stop for now. Your little brother's about to come scare you." His words had no effect. The younger Tony was still high on confidence. Tony's hand sank uselessly through him. Too late! Too late! Tony tried to grab his younger body and pull him upright, but then, boom, a missile detonated somewhere outside the villa bedroom. One blast was followed by another, a relentless barrage as if intercontinental rockets had landed in a ring around the house. Explosions, roaring flames, then the staccato rat-tat of automatic gunfire, and the sickening sounds of people being hit. Chaos, as though an army had poured in to slaughter indiscriminately. "Ah, what the hell is that?" The young, confident Tony deflated at once. He scrambled away from the woman and, together with her, crawled on all fours toward the bedroom door. When they burst out into the hall, there wasn't an army outside. No flames, no missiles. Only a 2-year-old leaning against a huge speaker, with cackling and swinging a toy like it was a gun. Young Tony understood instantly and, furious, grabbed a cushion and lunged. "Leon, you little brat!" What followed was a ridiculous, endearing life-or-death chase through the villa. The woman Tony had invited, still half undressed, watched the pair of adults and a toddler bouncing around like madmen, quickly buttoned up and fled. Tony, watching, covered his face and swore. Even now, seeing the scene again dragged him right back into it. Leon's midnight antics had been the first thing to interrupt his good fortune. the first blow, sudden and unannounced. After that night, Tony's swagger collapsed for weeks. He had to see doctors to claw his way back. And to be fair, compared to a toddler, his own behavior had been absurd and unreliable. That night had been a rare embarrassment he preferred to forget. Damn, Leon. This isn't a pre-death flashback. This is a phantasm you cooked up, right? Teeth clenched, Tony shouted, "You little stinker, get out here! Fine, I'll beat you to death!" Since he was in the memory anyway, he might as well vent. He picked up another cushion and went after the 2-year-old. If this loop insisted on replaying the moment he'd buried, he would at least make it count. But as Tony threw the pillow, the scene snapped. Vision blurred, the bedroom stitched back to its original positions. A rewind. A restart. Tony frowned. Something was wrong. He calmed himself and began to map the rhythm of the repetition. After several cycles, the pattern became clear. The same scene repeated endlessly. He couldn't leave. The villa was ringed by walls that had simply appeared. Captain America had said Sentinel hadn't annihilated humanity. He'd moved people into another space. Tony was almost certainly in that space now. Whatever this place was doing to him hurt. Did Sentinel intend to make all of humanity relive pain here? Tony watched the two figures on the bed, thinking it through. The images made him ache in a strange way. After enough repetitions, that ache turned oddly hot. Tormented by the 7 deadly sins? Was this lust? If escaping required piercing desire, no one could be saved. No one on Earth could look through all 7 desires. It made a kind of sense. But this was a constructed space, and constructed spaces could be broken. Tony flexed. His anti-sentinel armor roared to life. He charged at the villa's shimmering outer wall and slammed into it. The impact didn't stop him. A huge hole tore open. Splinters flew like confetti. It felt as if he'd crashed through a wooden partition, not an impenetrable energy barrier. What the? Beyond the ripped wall was a quiet night street. A person in a chicken mascot costume tottered on the corner, holding up a propaganda placard and clucking into the dark. None of this belonged to any of Tony's memories. He had a second to wonder before a crash echoed nearby. 6 wooden boards splintered, and Hulk, Hawkeye, Captain America, and the rest poured through. Tony. 6 pairs of eyes brightened when they saw him. After the initial reunion, Tony noticed an odd consistency. Wait, each of these board bursts led to rooms filled with our worst memories. Of course, Banner said with an awkward shrug. Those scenes were the loneliest, most painful moments of my life. Yelena nodded. The data calls this Sentinel's void space. It forces people to repeatedly experience their most painful, loneliest moments. Tony's mouth twisted. Banner had seen the moment he first transformed into the Hulk and the devastation that followed. Captain America had relived Bucky falling from the cliff. All of them were staring at their worst hours. Tony, on the other hand, had been watching lust. A peculiar kind of pain, but pain nonetheless. He thought of worse things. The day he learned his parents had died, the time the terrorists captured him. But somehow those memories had been softened by Leon's presence. What hurt most, apparently, was that night the toddler had ruined his moment. In that sense, maybe he should be grateful to Leon. Tony cleared his throat, face contorting. If this place makes us relive pain, then we fight our way out, he said. For forcing us through those awful memories, we'll beat whatever made them. He opened his faceplate. I'm in. I'm in, Hawkeye said, unsheathing his bow. The handle slid open to reveal embedded infinity stones, space and power. Pietro tapped the sole of his shoe, where 2 more stones glinted. Captain America hefted his shield. Natasha's wrist gauntlets revealed embedded gems. Banner's body rippled as Hulk prepared to smash. Everyone except Hulk had 2 stones. Leon had apparently outfitted them, casually, with gear to cope with the multiverse's shifts. Tony wasn't going to be outdone. His armor reconfigured into a sleek white suit. He brushed a hand across the ring at his waist, the world ring, and the sky itself answered. A towering figure with 6 luminous barrels on its head burst through above them like a living cannonade. Tony vaulted up and merged into the machine's cockpit, its systems sealing around him. Avengers! Tony thundered into the comms, voice steady and charged. Assemble! Chapter 593. Pietro, the best masseuse. Deadly shadows surged like a tide. At its center, scarlet energy swirled and expanded in a perfect sphere. The last time Wanda had faced anything like this had been in Mephisto's hell. The Sentinel's boundless darkness had already engulfed Earth. Now it rolled back toward her, like the returning surf. Chaos magic could reshape reality, and so could the Sentinel. Even with Wanda fighting seriously, she couldn't finish him off decisively. He was strong. Aside from Leon, the Sentinel was the fiercest opponent she'd ever faced among Earthlings in the multiverse. This ruined world was his home turf, and she still had to protect Carter, so she couldn't go all out. Fortunately, the shadows still couldn't completely overwhelm her. Wanda's chaos magic pushed outward, layer by layer. As long as the fight went on, it was only a matter of time before she cornered the Sentinel in the dark. What she lacked was time, and she worried about the Avengers who'd been transported away. "Sorry, Jarvis," she said. "I'm leaving the job of sending the Sentinel to God." A sling ring suddenly appeared in Wanda's palm amid the scarlet magic. The ring was set with the Time Stone and the Reality Stone. Wanda curled her fingers, slipped the ring on, and prepared to send the Sentinel somewhere he couldn't come back from, no more holding back. Then crisp cracking noises echoed through the surrounding space. Wanda froze. "On your left," Captain America's voice sounded by her ear. Carter and Wanda turned. A huge, bucket-shaped iron helmet shattered the black shadow and surged out of the tide. Clinging to the helmet were Captain America, Banner, and 4 others, everyone who'd been transported away except Tony. As for Tony, there was no need to guess. This massive red, bucket-like head was his handiwork. "Don't worry, little girl. We're here," Hawkeye announced, perched on the helmet's ear. He stepped onto it, drew his bow, and nocked an arrow. 2 glowing gems on the bow flashed. "Leon helped me name this move. 1 meteor stream." The bowstring was pulled taut. Blue and purple sparks flared between bow and arrow. Hawkeye's aim was never in question. He released. The string hummed. A streak of blue-purple light, like a shooting star across a dark sky, tore through the darkness. Ferocious winds followed its path. Space itself cracked like glass wherever it went. The endless shadows burst open as if pricked. At the edge of the torn darkness, the Sentinel, entirely black, like living shadow, lifted his hand to block the arrow. He was too slow. Imbued with space power, Hawkeye's arrow leapt through space and materialized directly in front of him. Boom! It hit dead center. A vast explosion of energy rolled outward, tearing through the void. Before anyone could see what state the Sentinel was in, Pietro leapt out, jumping from the red helmet into the air. He left blue-green light trails where his feet cut the air. Each step sent ripples of energy outward. He was actually running on air. "You fast, huh? Let me show you who's fastest," Pietro yelled. The boots on his feet, enhanced with the Space Stone and the Time Stone, acted like rocket boosters. In one blink, he'd launched into the energy maelstrom, slicing through the diffused blue-purple light. In the core of the explosion, the Sentinel had been struck in the chest. His chest armor was torn and flapping. He held Hawkeye's arrow, but his pitch-black body showed no obvious wounds. Pietro closed in cursing, then unleashed a flurry of blows. Bang! Bang, bang! Bang, bang, bang! His hands became a blur, a spinning propeller of fists hammering flesh on flesh faster than any Gatling gun. In 2 or 3 seconds, he must have landed thousands of strikes, a full 360-degree assault pounding the Sentinel front and back. "Humph, did you see that? This is real speed," Pietro shouted, exhilarated, then called back with a grin. "Don't worry, I held back. I won't let the Sentinel get beaten to death." He grimaced, rubbing his hands and suddenly blowing on the backs of them. "Ouch, man, that hurts." His hands weren't a bloody mess. His body could take it, but the others watching were speechless. "Pietro, what are you doing? Get out of the way." Captain America barked and hurled his shield. After leaving Cap's hand, the shield shimmered, tearing through space amid a bluestone glow, and materialized right between Pietro and the Sentinel. Clang! It struck Pietro and bounced off, sending him tumbling backward. What's happening?" Pietro shouted as he flipped, snatching the shield midair and landing stably thanks to his boots. He spun to face the Sentinel. The Sentinel still had a punching stance, his ripped chest armor flapping, otherwise seemingly unharmed. Those thousands of punches hadn't left a trace. "Is this guy built like Superman?" Pietro muttered, eyes widening. The Sentinel looked up. 2 faint white lights glowed beneath his pitch-black face, and Pietro's whole body trembled. A cold dread rose in him, like an antelope cornered by a leopard on a cliff. Of course, the sentinel vanished and reappeared behind Pietro. Teleportation! Pietro's pupils dilated. He sprang into a super-speed state and barely dodged a crushing blow. The sentinel teleported again, appearing beside him to throw another punch, this time a heavy, killing strike. Pietro's speed let him dodge, but the two of them began a dizzying exchange, phasing around one another midair and trading blows. Impressive, Tony's muffled voice came from inside the giant helmet. Next time Leon needs a masseuse, I'm recommending Pietro. Nobody beats him for a full-body need. Tony, don't trash-talk teammates in the middle of a fight, Captain America scolded, patting the helmet. Trash talk? Tony's voice shot back. No, I'm trying to help. I can see none of you can handle that mentally ill charcoal gentleman. Then leave the rest to me, the grand entrance of the celestial armor, Tony announced, his tone rising with triumph. Chapter 594, Celestial Armor. The iron bucket that had been half buried in the shadows suddenly surged forward. Its immense form rose from the water, a crimson body with huge, broad palms. When the celestial armor finally freed itself from the shadows, its head pierced the clouds. This armor was modified by me from a celestial corpse. Leon said he was called Erisham the Judge, and his strength could destroy a universe. Tony's voice echoed across heaven and earth. After my modifications, it isn't as terrifying as it was in life, but it can still hold a planet in its hand, like a baseball, and throw it in a perfect arc. Hey, you little charcoal kid over there, the celestial armor is currently in its shrunken form. It'll be even stronger when it grows. Tony chuckled. If you sober up now, I might spare you the bullying. The sentinel stopped chasing Pietro the moment the celestial armor crawled out of the shadow. He hovered in the air and escaped fluttering like a ghost. After Tony finished speaking, the sentinel tilted his head and regarded him for a few seconds. Then he instantly appeared atop the armor's head, hands pressing under its 6 barrels. The sentinel's white hole-like eyes glowed a fierce gold. Terrifying stellar energy erupted from his palms, temperatures high enough to melt vibranium, but striking the celestial armor couldn't even leave a scorch. The heat continued to climb. Very good. You've given a perfect answer. It's clear your desire for destruction runs deep, Tony said. He guided the massive armor's hand around the sentinel's head. Then let's see what even greater destructive power looks like. Tony sent Captain America and Hulk to Wanda's side, then suddenly exploded into motion, flinging the sentinel into the sky like a pebble. The force felt like a small asteroid impact. The void personality controlling the sentinel briefly blacked out. When he came to, he was already in space outside Earth, the gigantic celestial armor in pursuit. The moment it shot beyond the atmosphere, its height began to skyrocket. In less than a second, the armor was larger than Earth. Its massive fist, a mountain spanning the sky, smashed into the sentinel. Blood spattered, and he was thrown backward like a meteor. Ha! This is the feeling! Tony laughed, sounding almost like Loki. If it had been another Iron Man, he might have laced the armor with technological weapons. But this Tony, shaped by Leon, preferred close-quarters brawling. Come on, charcoal kid. Use your reality manipulation, stellar energy, molecular control, telekinesis, and super strength on me. He shouted as if sound could carry through vacuum, chasing the sentinel and punching him again and again. The sentinel answered with every power Tony named. Each collision pushed his energy levels higher. In the MCU, the sentinel really was one of Earth's strongest superhumans, but even the void personality's full output, thousands of times in stellar energy, was too little against the celestial armor at super-individual level. Even though Tony couldn't unleash even 1% of the armor's power, the sentinel was pummeled like a sandbag, sent hurtling through the stars repeatedly. Tony was elated, finally tasting Leon's joy. By the time they reached the moon, Tony knew it was time to end it. Still haven't switched personalities? Your psychological issues, charcoal, are worse than Deadpool's, he said. The celestial armor's giant hand gripped the sentinel again. If you refuse to give your body back to your main personality, take a nap for now. Tony funneled cosmic energy into the armor's palm. When the auxiliary AI warned that the gathered energy had reached galaxy-destroying levels, he detonated it in his hand. A purplish-red flare spiked from his palm, a pinpoint of white-hot light burning through the void. If that energy had been released outward, the solar system would have been dust. Instead, compressed in his fist, it knocked the Sentinel unconscious. The dark void energy evaporated from his body, revealing a battered, bloody young man. "Look at you. Actually pretty young. That dark look of yours had me thinking you were a lump of coal," Tony said, amused. Tony guided the armor back to Earth and shrank it to 100 kilometers tall as they re-entered the atmosphere. With the Sentinel unconscious, the void energy's hold on Earth snapped. Wanda's chaos magic spread across the globe, reshaping reality and rescuing humans and creatures trapped in void space. Captain America, with the most trustworthy face in the multiverse, calmed everyone and won their confidence. A few hours later, Tony carefully stowed the celestial armor and joined the others in a circle around the limp Sentinel. His injuries are healing fast. He could probably survive a galaxy-blowing explosion. Can Leon do that? He probably can, Tony mused. He hadn't seen Leon go all out since driving off Dormammu. The others focused on the Sentinel. Will he revert to his main personality when he wakes? Pietro asked, kicking his foot against the Sentinels. Probably not, Natasha said. His main personality hides from the outside world because of psychological problems. Now, with these injuries, he'll retreat even deeper. So what do we do? Have Tony pull out the celestial armor again and try to reason with him when he wakes? Captain America suggested. He doesn't seem able to communicate, Sharon Carter said. So we'll have to use external means. Wanda smiled and flipped her palm. Chaos magic pulsed as she produced a yellow mind stone in her hand. She activated it and reached into the Sentinel's mind. Seconds later, the Sentinel gasped awake. He bolted upright as if from a nightmare, eyes wide with lingering terror. Seeing the wary Avengers around him, he covered his face and curled up, pleading, Don't hit me! I don't know anything." The Avengers exchanged looks. Yelena shrugged, tablet in hand. The data says every time he switches and wakes, he loses his memory. He really doesn't know what he did. However, our mission is complete. Who says comforting with fists isn't comforting? Chapter 595, The Three Great Legends of the Dimension Continent. After the mission report was filed, Earth was returned to the God Kingdom universe by Leon's mechanical body. The Avengers went back to the Dimension Continent with Sentinel Bob. Everyone was fascinated by the young man who became terrifyingly powerful when his personality switched. Tony was already thinking up armor ideas inspired by Sentinel. Weeks passed. Captain America and Banner made steady progress with Bob's psychotherapy. Tony, for his part, used a Mind Stone to build a device that restrained Bob's void personality and let him use his powers on his own. With recognition and new equipment, Bob joined the S-Universe Avengers and began saving worlds with the rest of them. Time slipped by. Under the banner of saving an infinite multiverse, weeks, months, even years felt like nothing. The TVA rescued more and more universes, and more superheroes joined the effort. Unbeknownst to many of them, 2 years had passed on the Dimension Continent. The stretches of time heroes spent on missions were often hundreds or thousands of times longer. In those 2 years, the small village that had once served as a gathering place on the Dimension Continent had turned into a vast city. Stretching over 100 kilometers east to west, its districts a chaotic patchwork of cyberpunk towers, arcane streets, and ancient village quarters. Each universe's Earth maintained an outpost there, and beyond the central city sat thousands of smaller towns, associations and alliances formed by different superhero variants. There were groups like the Iron Man Awesome Alliance, the Hulk Hates Banner League, the Captain America Justice Corps, and the Scarlet Witch, Take Down Wanda, and Steal Leon Brigade. All sorts of strange and legitimate alliance cities dotted tens of thousands of kilometers of land. Every day, hundreds of millions of heroes rested, sparred, traded, and plotted in that region. 3 legends circulated through the central city. The first, to defeat the S-Universe Iron Man, you'd have to gather the combined force of every Iron Man across the multiverse. The second, the team that had set out for the continent's frontier 2 years ago to find the Zeus Spring had already found the water and achieved true immortality. The third, on the road to saving the future of the multiverse, the God Kingdom universe and Battleworld were fated to clash in a decisive war. The Iron Man legend grew because, over the past 2 years, Tony had won every single Iron Man day, more than 20 straight victories. That made him a sore point for all other Iron Men and a thorn in the sides of many superheroes across the multiverse. Other competitions, Captain America Day, Hulk Day, and so on, saw different winners as participants rotated or previous champions stopped entering. Only Iron Man Day had produced the same champion from start to finish. That shameless S-Universe Tony not only was strong, he showed up for every Iron Man Day without fail. Iron Men everywhere bit their tongues and seethed. Everyone else tuned in each Iron Man Day, waiting to see when Tony's streak would finally end. The Zeus Springwater legend spread because the water was priceless. In the business of saving worlds, years could pass like a blink. With coffee brewed from Zeus Springwater at Jarvis's cafe, heroes could board new Earths without aging. They didn't have to worry about their bodies catching up to their service. That was why the team that left for the continent's frontier 2 years ago, guarded by the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Warriors 3, Frog Thor, Alligator Loki, and others, was the city's hottest topic. From time to time, they sent back messages claiming they'd smelled the spring's freshness and were close to the treasure. Those updates kept the city buzzing. What no one knew was that the team was actually 400 trillion kilometers away from the continent's edge, walking in the wrong direction. The God Kingdom continent spanned light years. Even if they searched for a century, they wouldn't find the spring. The third legend, war between the God Kingdom universe and Battleworld, had more substance. TVA agents on missions had come across Dr. Doom's operatives from Battleworld, tearing timelines apart and forcing collapsing universes into Battleworld. Their goal was the opposite of the God Kingdom's. When Leon started recruiting and actively saving more universes, Doom noticed fewer worlds were falling into Battleworld. Panicked at being outmaneuvered and reduced to picking over scraps, Doom sent agents into multiple universes. Their method was simple and brutal. Use time weapons to destroy timelines, ensuring the affected universes folded into Battleworld. Between both sides, the rate at which parts of the multiverse were dying accelerated. Leon and Doom both understood this was inevitable given the escalation. The heroes under them understood it too. The ones who had cause to be most frantic were the dimensional demon gods. Many dimensions depended on the multiverse's existence. If the multiverse collapsed, countless dimensions would vanish. The demon gods, who had once coveted Earth, dreaming of swallowing it into their realms, began, paradoxically, to protect it instead. Sometimes they fought Battleworld agents, sometimes God Kingdom forces. Battleworld's operatives, armed with time weapons, paid no heed to demon gods. The God Kingdom side, when danger appeared, called Jarvis. Jarvis, working with Black Strange, could take control of a dimensional demon god's domain in an instant. The demon gods wailed across the multiverse, despairing, though most probably wouldn't live to see the day of ultimate ruin. Dark Strange assembled a strange team to go door to door, checking on the demon gods, a grim routine of inspections and salvage. "Those are the three main legends in our city right now, Mr. Stark," Jarvis's cafe robot said as it prepared Tony's coffee. "The matter about you became a legend last week," the robot added. "It was catalyzed when Whitekin Iron Man gathered all the other Iron Men to form an anti-S-Tony alliance." Tony frowned. "Something's off. That Whitekin's lost to me so many times. If he's suddenly gathering Iron Men, he must have a plan." "Sir, do you mean they may have found a countermeasure?" the robot asked. Tony scoffed, then bristled with pride. "Counter me? Ridiculous. The multiverse's #1 Iron Man is not counterable." He was stubborn as always, but a flicker of doubt crossed his face. "Jarvis, could that white can be a Battleworld spy?" The robot paused. "I have an idea, sir. Would you like me to contact Leon and ask him to look into what White Can has been doing?" Tony wanted to handle the problem indirectly. The robot shook its head. "I'm sorry, sir. Young Master Leon has been in the God Kingdom universe for the past few months and cannot be contacted." "Holed up in there for months? What is he doing? Has he gone off to other worlds?" Tony muttered, puzzling as he stared into his coffee. Chapter 596, DC Earth 1. Amid a dazzling rain of energy light, Leon floated high in the sky, his body restored to a colossal 90 million kilometers. The God Kingdom space was a pocket realm within the God Kingdom universe. Here, All the energy and elements revolved around him like subjects prostrating before a king. If one looked closely, the space around Leon was warped. Gravity, electromagnetism, and the fundamental forces shifted constantly. Anyone who stepped into it would be crushed to dust by the sheer power. At a certain moment, Leon opened his eyes and descended. Golden light burned from him. Where it touched, life quietly poured down. Grass shoots sprouted across the wasteland, rapidly thickening into several-meter-high green blades that swayed though no wind stirred. From one blade, seeds fell, and a strange little grass person hopped out. That was only the beginning. Around Leon, stalks shed seeds. Where they landed, countless tiny people sprang up. All had green heads, but each was different. Some summoned thunder with a raised arm, others reversed time with a glance. Leon watched the lives he had created with a thought, then waved his hand, and the little grass people folded back into seeds. I've absorbed and fused every gene I could find, getting closer and closer to Silver Superman, but I'm still just a bit short, he murmured. 2 years had passed. Except when action was necessary, Leon had immersed himself in genetic research. He bathed in sunlight, dissecting gene templates collected from countless worlds. Over that time, he had become Golden Superman. Under the Marvel system, his strength had risen to the multiverse level, eclipsing many others, and his main body's extraordinary abilities had multiplied. He was increasingly like Silver Superman, able to manifest nearly any power he desired. He was certain he stood one step from Silver Superman, but that one step blocked him. His gene research had stalled at index 89,999 half a year ago. The next breakthrough would be the 90,000th tier, the third stage beyond his current limit. He worked with Superbrain for another 6 months and had only just paused. Burying myself in research will only lead to a dead end, he thought. My understanding of life and genes is sufficient. I just lack inspiration. His consciousness extended beyond the God Kingdom space, sweeping the boundless universe. He even intercepted the conversation between Tony and Jarvis. Tony had been right. It was time to visit other universes and collect reference genes. Leon activated his traversing ability. Search world. Keywords: Silver Superman, blood. Anchoring world. Calculating energy required for traversing. Beginning traversing. The traverser returned only one universe, the world that contained Silver Superman. Leon confirmed without hesitation and left the Marvel Universe. After flying through chaotic voids, he crossed the origin wall of the DC Multiverse and arrived at Earth 1 of the Silver Age. He materialized in the space above the planet and immediately switched on supervision and hearing, locking onto Clark's location, a laboratory. The classic red cape and underwear over pants image fluttered below as Superman observed a scientist's experiment. Apart from the garish underwear, the scene was archetypically Silver Age. Leon prepared to descend for a friendly exchange, but he was distracted by the experimental apparatus, a spherical instrument like a green sea urchin. Inside, a piece of green kryptonite was being transformed into an iron ball by technical means. If memory served, that experiment would blow. The device exploded. At the last instant, Superman used his speed to send everyone clear and then threw a hemispherical metal cover over the apparatus. The blast was worse than expected. The force ripped the cover loose and flung Superman himself away. Radiation from the kryptonite likely disturbed him. He crashed into a desert, fell into a human-shaped pit in the sand, and lost consciousness. Leon appeared beside the unconscious hero as if by teleportation. "I came at exactly the right time," he said softly. He raised an eyebrow, hovered over the sand, then lifted his arm and wiggled his fingers. The blood mist from Superman's injuries, dispersed by the explosion, obediently gathered and condensed into a single droplet in Leon's palm. "This is Silver Superman's prime blood." That was surprisingly easy. It was, by far, the smoothest and most efficient collection he had ever made. He looked at the unmoving Clark in the sand and felt he should help. According to the comic plot, his power will be reduced by a third next, he reflected. The term Silver Superman referred to Earth 1's Clark Kent from DC's Silver Age. The Silver Age, generally dated 1956 to 1986, was DC's peak creative era, beginning with the New Flash in 1956 and ending with Crisis on Infinite Earths in 1986, when the multiverse collapsed to a single Earth. But Silver Superman's power wasn't constant across that period. It had a key turning point in the 1971 story, the Sand Superman saga. Before that story, Silver Superman's abilities were bound only by imagination. Writers could hand him any power. He could drag planets, run without limit, and perform nearly anything aside from being alarmed by Kryptonite, which might have been a self-fulfilling weakness. After the Sand Superman saga, everything changed. The tale began when a scientist tried to transmute Kryptonite into iron. The failed experiment blasted Superman into the desert. When he woke and returned to the lab to demonstrate that the Kryptonite had been successfully converted to iron, he bit the iron ball to prove it. While he had been unconscious, however, a mental energy from the quark dimension siphoned off 1/3 of his power and fused with the sand beneath him to form a new being, Sand Superman. Chapter 597. The benevolent Silver Superman. Sand Superman had a righteous heart and wanted nothing more than to be a hero. But his strange physiology made him dangerous. Any contact with Superman risked triggering a cataclysmic explosion, so he had no choice but to leave Earth and return to the dimension he came from. When he left, he carried away a portion of Superman's power. From that moment on, Silver Superman's strength was permanently reduced by 1/3. Don't be fooled by the fraction. Losing that slice of power was devastating. Before Sand Superman's birth, Silver Superman could stroll through the cosmos, tugging planets behind him like beads on a string. He could even reverse the flow of time with his speed. After losing 1/3, he struggled to shift a single continental plate. In the real world, not just in some comic editor's notes, Silver Superman had fallen from impossibility to limitation. He became an ordinary Superman, upright and noble, but no longer infinite. When Leon arrived, Superman lay unconscious in the middle of losing power. From Leon's vantage, bits of Superman's strength were being siphoned into the yellow sand beneath him. At the same time, a spiritual current from the quark dimension fused with that energy in the sand, forming the beginnings of a soul. Leon stopped watching like a spectator. He set aside the blood that had condensed in his palm, bent over, and pulled a mass of yellow sand, shaped like a crude humanoid, from beneath Superman. The sand being had not yet formed a full consciousness. With a hard press of his palm to the sand's chest, Leon expelled the absorbed 1/3 of Superman's power as a globe of sunlight and guided it back toward the fallen hero. Superman woke. He blinked, dazed, and then flinched at the sight of the light. "What is this?" he murmured. "Oh, are you saving me?" He looked at Leon in confusion, then smiled and waved. "Thank you. That light, it feels very pleasant. What an extraordinary power. But I'm not hurt. It's unnecessary." He rose slowly, as if ready to depart. "Wait." Leon shook his head and called after him. He shook the sand from his hand. The sand mass, having lost most of its cohesion, lay as a scatter of grains, its consciousness only faintly present. That light felt comfortable because it was your power, but it was absorbed by this sand first. Superman's brow furrowed. "How could that be, friend? You jest." "Don't you feel weaker? Isn't something missing?" Leon asked. Superman concentrated for a few seconds. He frowned, then relaxed. "I feel fine. In fact, with all this desert sunlight, I feel rather invigorated." Superman often regulated his powers. When he wasn't tapping into them, he genuinely didn't notice the loss. Leon hadn't counted on that. He stepped back and prepared to explain what had happened, because someone you saved deserved to know what you did for them. Minutes later, Superman's face changed. "So my power combined with some spiritual energy and became a new life." He glanced at the faint, ephemeral shape still hovering in Leon's palm and fell quiet. "If I reclaim my power, what happens to it? Will it remain a life?" "No," Leon said. "It will return to its dimension and dissolve back into free spiritual energy." Leon could see Superman struggle inwardly. The Silver Age incarnation of Superman was pure-hearted, righteous to the point of painful gentleness. Even Captain America would seem rough by comparison. Leon had expected resistance, but still, he had offered help without hesitation. That was how Lejeduo's selflessness had shaped him. But Superman seemed unwilling to accept that the new entity might be deprived of existence. "If I take back that power," Superman said slowly, "I would be snuffing out a young life. I can't do that, my friend." Leon gaped. "You really feel that way? It hasn't even formed full consciousness. At most, it's an embryo. Reclaiming your entire power now would be like... He stopped, realizing his clumsy analogy sounded ridiculous. Superman froze for a beat, then laughed. Friend, you are truly interesting. Leon's annoyance dissolved into a rueful smile. Even so, he replied, all I'm saying is you don't need to give back a full third. A smaller portion will let the new life survive and spare you some power. Superman looked resolved. He stepped forward, put his hands on his hips, and smiled with his usual sunny benevolence. You're right, we should give the child a chance. But I can't leave it wholly without what makes it itself. He took some of his power back, less than the third that had been taken, likely about 1/5 of his original strength, and transferred the remainder into the sand and spirit. It was less than a full recovery for Silver Superman, but enough to let the new being develop without being extinguished. Leon watched without intervening, like someone watching a comic come alive. Maybe this was Silver Superman's choice. Maybe it was destiny woven into the DC multiverse. If Superman remained entirely whole, he might have been able to stop the Anti-Monitor later on, and the multiverse would not have been forced through its crises and resets. The Quark spirit, fed again by Superman's power and blended with the sand, coalesced into a new life. Within minutes, a sand Superman, bearing a striking resemblance to Silver Superman, stood up. He instantly understood what had occurred. After thanking both Superman and Leon, Sand Superman turned and returned to his native dimension. He could be considered your child, Leon said softly to Superman. Does it pain you to see him go? Superman shook his head, hands resting on his red trunks. He'll have his own life. I should go check on Doctor and the others now. Would you like to come with me? Leon asked. I haven't even properly thanked you, Superman answered. I think we'll have much to talk about. Dr. Y is working on turning Kryptonite into iron, an intriguing experiment. You wouldn't be bored. Leon smiled but shook his head. No, Clark, I came to this universe for a purpose. That's done. I must move on. Perhaps we'll meet again, Superman said. Until then, thank you. Leon had already taken what he needed. There was no reason to linger. As he finished speaking, his figure blurred and faded like ink bleeding from paper. Only Silver Superman's cape fluttering in the desert wind remained. He knows who I am? Superman murmured, watching the last trace of Leon disappear. And I don't even know his name. He really is a mysterious friend. Chapter 598, The Young Supreme Little Superman DC, Earth 33. Mr. Lyon's second stop, also called Source Earth. This is the real world where the DC editorial offices exist and the place Supreme Little Superman was born. The heroes and villains of the DC universe are only comic book characters here. Only Supreme Little Superman actually has powers. This particular Clark Kent is Mr. Lyon's ultimate target, genetically, power-wise. Even as a child, he was terrifying. Before he came of age, he could single-handedly defeat every hero on the planet. His speed outstripped the Flash. After each victory, he'd shout, "Who else is there?" As an adult, he became the pinnacle of all Kryptonian supermen. He shattered 3 crisis multiverses with a single punch, fought Earth 2's Superman to the death, tormented Mr. and PM Tulk for sport, and used reality-warping blows to blow up the Batman who laughs. His genes were undeniably the perfect subject for Mr. Lyon's research. After activating his crossover ability, Mr. Lyon arrived near Supreme Little Superman. It was a jogging path by the sea. From a distance, he saw Clark and his girlfriend walking together. The boy looked about 13 or 14, earlier than when the usual story begins. The DC timeline was still clear in Mr. Lyon's mind. At 15, Clark would see a comet and awaken his powers during the crisis on Infinite Earths. Right now, he was still a few years from that. External crises couldn't reach this place yet. I've jumped more than 10 years in one go, Mr. Lyon muttered, thinking back to being in 1971 on Earth 1 and now finding himself in the 1980s on Earth 33. In the future, Clark went down a dark path, becoming a butcher among heroes, only to be redeemed decades later. Mr. Lyon rested a hand on his forehead and watched the young figure's back. Since I'm here, and I want his genes, I should give the kid a little guidance. A few minutes later, Clark and Lori sat on a low stone bench, watching the sea reflect the setting sun. Let's rest here, Clark. Don't be so down. What happened? Why don't you tell me? Lori asked. Under Clark's thick glasses, resentment flickered. It's my dad. He tore up my comic again. Just leave me be for a while, Lori. He tore up your comic? Let me guess, the Batman one? Lori asked, stroking his shoulder. All right, don't be sad. How about I buy you that issue? Buy it for me? Clark blinked, suddenly embarrassed. He wasn't the sort of kid who wanted a girl to buy him things. He felt humiliated at the idea. No, don't. Forget it. I'm not mad anymore. He looked away awkwardly, still annoyed. Lori's brows knit. She didn't know what to do. They fell quiet, watching the sunset. Lori loved the sea. When either of them was upset, they'd come here. As shadows stretched with the dying light and the waves lapped the shore, the gloom eased a little. Clark stared off into space, lost in thought. A tall shadow fell across them. Clark looked up. A taller young man stood there, built and confident, like the polished, well-off college types Clark imagined, broad-chested, confident, the kind of person from a world he felt excluded from. Sir, do you need something? Clark asked, intimidated. He instinctively moved to stand in front of Lori. You can call me Mr. Lionchild, the man said, looking down into Clark's eyes. Supreme Little Superman hadn't awakened power until he was 15. Until then, he was an ordinary, comic-loving nerd whose father kept tearing up his magazines. Nerds weren't usually good with people like Mr. Lion, so Clark's eyes darted away. Okay, Mr. Lion, is there something I can do for you? Clark gripped Lori's hand, ready to pull her and run, but Mr. Lion's next words froze him. Child, your bones are extraordinary. You're a rare genius, destined to save the world. How about you learn some Chinese kung fu with me? Learn kung fu? Clark's mouth fell open. At his age, kung fu had the same allure as Superman's steel body in the comics. Mr. Lion then performed a stunt, a demonstration that looked like striking a bull from across the air, and Clark's awe turned to reverence. He dropped to his knees and tried to perform a proper disciple's kowtow like in the movies. Then, inexplicably, Mr. Lion moved into Clark's home. Even more inexplicably, Clark's parents welcomed him without surprise and seemed genuinely pleased by his presence. Confused, Clark Kent, the future Supreme Little Superman, began to follow Mr. Beastraw and learn what Mr. Lion called Kung Fu. Chapter 599, Dead Master Leon Clark Kent never thought he would lose the man he respected most, Master Leon. Amid the press of a surging crowd, Clark held Leon's body as its warmth slipped away. He pressed his hands desperately over the bullet wounds, but death proved inexorable. No matter how loudly Clark cried, Master Leon's eyes dimmed, color draining from them. Hot blood ran between Clark's fingers, but it gave him no warmth. He clung to his master's hand as it rested on his face, letting the blood-stained palm smear his cheek. No, don't die, Sifu, don't die. Ambulance! Somebody call an ambulance! Clark hugged Leon's shoulders tighter. He felt his master's temperature drop by the second, as if the warmth in his own chest were being pulled out with it. In the last moments, Leon stared at Clark with hollow eyes, blurred by loss of blood. He managed to stroke Clark's cheek with his stained hand and spoke, voice ragged and thin. Clark, remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Don't become like me. You have a better chance than I did to be a true hero. Remember, to be a true hero. Blood bubbled in Leon's throat. Each word cost him. Clark leaned in, straining to catch every syllable. When the last foamy drops of blood splattered onto the side of his face, the hand he had been holding went limp. Leon, cradled in his arms, was suddenly cold. Around them, the crowd shouted, phones flashed, people screamed for police and ambulances. But to Clark, the world fell silent. All sound and light retreated. His mind went blank. He stared blankly at Leon's ashen face. Memories of the 2 years they'd shared flickered through his head. Sifu? Is that what I should call you? Actually, just call me Leon. But I see people learning Kung Fu in Chinatown. They all call their teachers Sifu. Master. Only if you call them that will they teach you the real stuff. All right, then call me whatever you like. Master, do you want to live at my house? My dad's old-fashioned. He might not agree. I'm adopted. Don't worry. Your master will handle it. Damn it, Master. How are you so popular with my parents? They made the fanciest dishes to entertain you. Ha, that's a secret. Speaking of food, I cook pretty well. I'll let you try my dishes later. Master, you take up 2/3 of the bed. I can't sleep. Why do you have to sleep in my room when you live in my house? Kid, there's a kung fu move called sleeping on a rope. Master that and you can jump 3 meters high. I'm training you. but don't kick me off the bed in the middle of the night. That's to train your ability to dodge in your dreams. Is this serious? Master, are we officially starting real kung fu today? We are. Wow, finally. Are we learning Jeet Kune Do or Tai Chi? You even know Tai Chi? No, neither. Our style is called the Devouring Starry Sky style. Devouring Starry Sky, it doesn't sound mystical at all. Master, you're not pulling my leg, are you? Shut up and listen. The first form we'll practice is called Hundredfold Force. Hundredfold, that sounds powerful. What's the second move? Thousandfold Force. Will the third be 10,000-fold force? Not bad, you're already guessing the answers. Master, I've been training 2 years and I've reached sevenfold. Shouldn't I be a superhero by now? You haven't even mastered the first move and you want to save the world? No, keep practicing. I've only reached sevenfold in 2 years. Can you really master the first move? Master, I want to be a superhero. I just want to be a superhero. You kid, forget it. Go try it. But remember, greater power brings greater consequences. Think before you act. I understand. Spider-Man's line, with great power comes great responsibility. Master, no, please, don't die. Only then did Clark truly hear what Leon had been telling him. For months he had been playing at being a superhero, just like the comics, fighting petty criminals, seeking applause. The force techniques Leon taught him could multiply strength, speed, and defense. At sevenfold, he was fast enough, strong enough to be a masked vigilante. Clark had sewn himself a Batman-style mask and patrolled the streets at night. He moved through alleys and rooftops, stopping muggings and dodging bullets by inches. As he won a few easy victories, arrogance grew. Clark's pretend Batman became a loud presence in the neighborhood. He walked taller at school, abandoned his thick glasses, and the usual bullies fell silent. Girls whispered when he passed. Drunk on attention, he started provoking the city's largest gang, repeatedly disrupting their deals and even stealing their cash to scatter in the slums. Leon warned him to stay humble and careful. Clark treated it as needless caution, until today. The gang discovered his identity and kidnapped his parents. When a submachine gun muzzle was shoved into his mother's mouth, Clark surrendered to save them. At the last moment, Leon arrived, buying time. He led Clark and the Kents to the street, and only then collapsed from a hail of close-range bullets. Clark realized, looking at the motionless man he had called Master, what Leon had meant by power and responsibility. The words that taught him were now the last words he would ever hear. It was Clark's mistake that had cost Leon his life. He lay on top of Leon, weeping, the rain beginning to fall without him noticing. His body, honed into lean muscle by training, shivered as raindrops soaked them both. He understood, with a crushing clarity, that he would never again hear Leon's voice, feel his hand, or get another chance to say sorry. The boy who had sparred over beds and laughed at his master's cooking was gone. After a long time, people finally pulled Clark away from Leon's body. The ambulance came, sirens slicing through the crowd, but there was nothing more they could do. From that day on, there was one fewer naive Batman in the neighborhood, and one more solemn masked hero. The mask remained, but something inside Clark changed. He had learned what responsibility truly cost. Chapter 2. Earth 2's Golden Superman brings news. A year passed almost without him noticing. Clark, now known in the streets as the Supreme Little Superman, had learned the responsibilities of a hero earlier than most. He'd chosen a different path from the classic Superman, a masked street vigilante who still enforced justice, day after day. He no longer basked in the thrill of being a superhero the way he had at first. Where before he had drawn strength from his master, now he drew lessons from his master's death. Leon's sacrifice taught him to think, to set limits. Clark did not adopt a strict no-kill rule like some other heroes. He would kill if it had to be done, but every killing was deliberate and calculated. Each criminal he struck down was a way of honoring Leon's sacrifice, a grim ritual of remembrance. Leon's words replayed in his head constantly. That was how he justified carrying the price of what had been given him. One evening, the sun sank, and Clark sat with his girlfriend Lori by the sea. He watched the water in the same silence he'd worn 3 years before. Yet the reasons had changed. 3 years earlier, his silence had been sulky and childish, after his father had torn up his comic books. Tonight, his quiet was the rare, comfortable kind that comes from being close to someone you love. It was a luxury. When night came, he would put on his mask and go back to work. What Clark didn't know was that Leon, who had staged his death to force the boy to grow, had been watching him from above, wrapped in a covert biofield that let him see without being seen. Leon hovered invisible, pleased with his plan's success. After 3 years, I've finally broken down the genes of Silver Superman and Supreme Little Superman, he told himself. I've absorbed the best of their structures. Now I only need to tweak my own genes and I'll be able to push past the 90,000 times genetic limit. But gene modification will take time. Soon it'll be time for Clark to awaken his powers. I'll leave after he wakes. At dawn a few days later, a comet streaked overhead, and Clark's powers finally erupted. Sunlight spilled across the world and bathed him in yellow. Abilities manifested one after another. Strength, flight, senses, an accelerating mastery that left him stunned and a little regretful. If he had awakened earlier, maybe Leon would never have had to play the martyr. That thought cut him sharply. He threw himself into learning. His superbrain, an intellectual enhancement born of his genetic gifts, accelerated his progress. In days, he refined his power output 100-fold. Going from that to 10,000-fold felt unnaturally smooth. For a few bright days, he allowed himself to be happy. Then an unexpected visitor arrived, the old Superman from Earth 2, the Golden Age Superman. He came to Source Earth with news that shattered the small world Clark had just been building. There's a multiversal catastrophe, the old man said. Our universe is split into two halves, the positive matter universe and the antimatter universe. Each side has its own personification, the monitor and the anti-monitor. As both universes expand, the monitor's powers grow. The anti-monitor has turned hostile. He's been waging war, devouring positive matter worlds to fuel his domain. The positive matter side is already devastated. Only a handful of our universes remain. We have to stop the anti-monitor, or everything on our side will be consumed. Clark listened, stunned. He had barely absorbed the idea that other Supermen and Batmans existed beyond his world. Now he faced the reality of a war eating worlds. But one phrase snagged him. Save the world. It echoed the thing Leon had once told him when they first met. Young man, your bones are unique. At a glance, you're a 1 in 10,000 savior prodigy. Had Leon foreseen this? The memory sent blood pounding through Clark's veins. He grabbed the Earth 2 Superman's hand and said he would go. The positive matter side was short on defenders. Any help would be welcome. The old Superman accepted without hesitation, and the two left Source Earth together. They had barely gone when the first sign of the anti-monitor's advance appeared. A towering red wall unfurled outside Source Earth, a ripple of antimatter sweeping toward the planet. The antimatter wall devoured everything in its path. Had it reached Clark's world, there would have been no survivors. But Leon was there. Without ceremony, he intercepted the wall's advance, plucked Source Earth out of the void, and slipped it into his world ring, like a hand placing a marble into a pocket dimension. This kid is reckless, Leon muttered to himself as he watched Clark fly off. If I hadn't done that, he would have faced tragedy again. In the comic's original timeline, the destruction of Source Earth had been the spark of a much darker fall. In that version, the little Superman and the old Superman had left just before the antimatter wall struck and their hometown was destroyed. His parents and his girlfriend were gone. Alone in the multiverse, burning with righteous fury, he had stayed behind with the old Superman to cover the retreat during the final battle. After the anti-monitor fell, things did not get better. The single surviving Earth, meant to be a haven, was ruined by squabbling survivors. The little Superman felt betrayed. Why had he sacrificed everything while others failed to honor what was saved? Blinded by anger and jealousy, he returned and attacked other heroes, even beating Connor. Cornered by a crowd of heroes and caught in the chaos, he accidentally killed someone. That was his first kill in that story. And from that point, the darkness had begun to consume him. This time, however, things were different. Leon had intervened and saved Source Earth. Whatever future might unfold, Clark had been given another chance. Outside the universe, in the empty shell beyond the multiversal battleground, Leon turned inward and began work on himself. The unexpected visit from Earth 2's Superman had been a windfall, another set of genes to study. He planned to modify his own genome, pushing his power past every previous limit. It would take time, he knew, but the rise of the Anti-Monitor made speed an imperative, and Clark's awakening had arrived at a crucial moment.